last Sunday. And I thank Peggy for the songs that she picked out. She called me and wanted to know what scripture I was going to be from, and I go, I really don't know at this point in time. And that was Friday. I said, pick them. I have full confidence. The songs that she picked fit perfect. And I thank her for that. Okay? So we've been talking about I am, and we recognize that Christ is, and he talks about the different aspects of I am, and Brant has done an excellent job of bringing them out, the parts that he's, he is the way, he is the sacrifice, he's the lamb, he's all of these things. But I've looked at it a little bit different. Last week I looked at the story of Moses where he said, I am that I am. I am that I am. And we examined that a little bit, and this is in the 3rd chapter of Exodus, 14th verse. And he said, you'll say to the children of Israel, I am has sent you. And this is when he was talking to Moses, okay? Which we broke down and looked at, and the definitions of am is be, and it says I exist because I exist is, and we'll look at that a little further. And here is, when we look at the definition of be, which I am is the present tense emphatic statement of be. It says, I have an objective that is real. I occupy the place, the situation, and my position. And I remain unmolested, undisturbed, and uninterrupted. And as we look at that and we think about it, and we allow our minds to try to grasp hold of the things that are going on in our society and the terrible things that are happening, and our heart gets heavy from it, we have to realize that our Redeemer, the one that we talked about, that the young lady talked about to start the service here, he has an objective. And we'll look at that in a little bit. And that objective is real. He occupies the place, the situation, and the position. Nothing happens without his approval that will allow it to happen. And we've been studying in Job, in Bible study, and we've talked about how God allowed Satan to cause trouble for Job and to attack Job, but he set a boundary. And you see, as we see all of this turmoil and we see everything going on around us, remember, God has set a boundary. He will only let Satan go so far, but he has offered us and given us protection. And he says, I remain unmolested, undisturbed, and uninterrupted. No matter what's going on in our society, no matter what's going on in this world, his plan is uninterrupted. The objective that he has is real, and it is uninterrupted, and it is undisturbed. He told Moses in the 3rd chapter of Exodus, he said, I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians. He's talking about the Israelite people. He's talking about them because he has seen the trouble and the turmoil that they're in while they're in bondage. And as we look at our situation, there's a certain amount of bondage, there's a certain amount of difficulty that we have because of Satan's control in this area called earth. Okay? But it says he's come down to deliver them. That's what and to bring them up out of that land. That's what he had told Moses he was going to do. That was his plan. That was his objective. Okay? And then he goes and he says to Moses, come. You come on down now, and I'm going to send you to bring that message to my people. Okay, so, and he did that, and he said, certainly I will be with thee. And as we looked at that, Moses assembles the people and goes through his conflict and with Pharaoh. They go through all of the plagues, and they've come up to the last plague, and the plague is death. And God has made a decree that says the firstborn of every individual in the land, whether it's slave, whether it's the king, whether it's anyone in society, any animal, any beast, the firstborn is going to be slain because of the disobedience to God. Everybody. Okay? But then he goes in and he says, take a lamb, bring it in, examine it, make sure that it's pure, make sure there's no blemishes in it. And then he tells them to slay the lamb, to take the blood and smear it on the doorposts, and remain in the house until morning. This was the message to the children of Israel, which started Passover. This is where it went. So he said, and God will pass through and strike Egypt. He says, but when he sees the blood on the lintel and the 2 doorposts, God will pass over the doorway. And then this last phrase here, he won't let the destroyer enter your house to strike you down with ruin. When they met God's provision, they had to stay in the house under that provision. And when they did, they were unmolested when the death angel came. He said, and then he tells them then, when this happens, he said, you keep this word forever, for it's a law for your children forever. When you enter the land which God will give you, and he did, as he promised, keep doing this. That's celebrating that Passover meal. And when your children say to you, why are you doing this? Tell them, this is a Passover sacrifice to God who passed over the homes of the Israelites in Egypt when he had Egypt with death, but rescued us. So this is what has set up in this whole I am that I am scenario that was being told there. So God said to Moses, this is my name. And this is when he talked about the I am that I am. This is my name forever. This is my memorial unto all generations. And we talked last week about that memorial. That is a remembrance. That is where you talk about it. That's where you put forth his name, that he exists. He is eternal. He is our God. He is the rescuer. He says to all generations. And that name is still true for us today. Because believe it or not, we are a part of a generation. Okay, so it's all generations. And this is the name. This is the memorial that we have. I am, or I exist because I exist. I am that I am. So that set up the Old Testament story. It says, now come thou, therefore, and I will appoint you, or I will accompany you. This is what he told Moses. I'm going to send you to do it. Has God sent us to do something? Marianne said, what can we do here in Wishy? We can keep that memorial alive to everyone that we come in contact with. My God's able, my God's willing, and my God exists. And he is eternal. That's what we can do. That's what we can do. But he says, I will accompany you. I'll be with you. And we looked at I will and what that meant. It means that denotes a promise of future action. When we meet the conditions, when we come to him, when we walk with him and follow his appointment, he's going to be with you. As we go forward, he's there. No matter where we go, he's there. He's with us. And that is his promise of future action. So we saw that the blood was placed on the doorpost, and because of that, they were rescued and they were saved and destroyed. He fulfilled his word when he said, I've come down to deliver them and to bring them out of the land. Because as soon as this took place, the next morning, here came Pharaoh's emissaries and said, get out, take it all and go. And they did. And God was with them. God fulfilled that promise of future events. And he brought them to the promised land. So, come now, therefore, and I will send thee. So he's still saying that today. Moses was an imperfect man. Moses had his faults, but he was chosen of God to go tell a story. Do we get too tied up in our faults Did we forget to tell the story? Moses went. Okay, so now let's fast forward. We saw what's set up and what God set down and showed his provision and how the blood was applied to the door that stopped the devourer. So now then, this hasn't changed. This I am that I am he still has an objective that is real. He occupies the place, the situation, the position, and he remains unmolested, undisturbed, and uninterrupted. And just as he had a plan back then, just as he had an objective to bring those children of Israel out into the promised land, he has an objective for this society and for us today. And he said it himself when he said, the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. And what was lost? That close relationship with God. He's trying to reestablish it. Our relationship with him. That relationship that says you're okay in my sight. That I want you to be with me, and I no longer am going to punish you. I'm no longer going to allow the death sentence that is placed on you because of sin destroy your lives. He goes, well, that's good, but how? He has an objective that is real. Jesus said unto Nicodemus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Or Mr. Thomas. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And as we look at that and we say, okay, how does that happen? He occupies or he controls the place, the situation, and the position. His position has never changed. He is the Redeemer. He is the one that becomes that lamb that Brian talked about, and as he was talking about the temple. And as we look at that, he occupies that position of Redeemer. But he also occupies the position of Lord of Lords, King of Kings. From everlasting to everlasting, he exists because he exists. So he does this, he makes this statement, this is my body which is given for you, this do in remembrance of me. And that was what he told them to do with the Passover meal as they go. Do it in remembrance of what? Our deliverer. And so as we get ready to take communion here after a while, this is what we're doing in remembrance. But what is this? Communion. When we begin to take communion. It says when your children ask you, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Do we ask one another, why are we doing this? You see, when you get into the theology of the church world, and I'm not talking to any one denomination, I've read a lot of manuals. There are set procedures written down how to do communion. And there is a procedure that you follow, depending on the situation, depending on the denomination. And if we're not careful, we get tied up in how are we doing it. We get caught up in the procedure, and we lose the reason why. And when we begin to get into the procedure and focusing on the procedure, then we lose the reason. There is a very definite reason. There is a valid reason. There is a powerful reason why we do this. So when we begin to get ready for communion, this is why we do this. Because he gave his life on the cross for us. This is a celebration of the love that he had for us, that he was willing to do and say, this is my body that is broken for you. Now, as we think about all of the bodies that are broken in El Paso and in Dayton and all of that, that is final as far as this world's concerned. They have no power to bring their life back. But here's what Christ said. I lay down my life that I might take it again. I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it again. You see, if he wasn't the I am, if he didn't exist because he exists, he couldn't be our Redeemer. because all he would have done was pay the price. But you see, he not only paid the price, he's still with us today, alive forevermore. So that is what we are celebrating. That is why we have communion. To recognize and realize and go with this, he lays down his life himself. It's his desire that we have this salvation. But he has the ability to lay it down and the ability to take it up. Now, I can give my life, and I've got the ability to do that, if that's my desire, but I have no ability to pick it back up. But Jesus did. You begin to see why he is worthy to be praised, why he is so important in our lives. And here is the fact that he wants you to remember. I remain unmolested, undisturbed, and uninterrupted. It doesn't matter how bad situation gets, it does not disturb him. Why? Because he knows that those that believe him are going to be with him in eternity forever. That is where he's wanting to take us. That is where he said, and he is not interrupted. No matter how bad things get, his plan is not interrupted. And because of that, we can pray. It says, but if we, in 1 John 1:7 says, but if we walk in the light as he is the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus, his Son, cleanses us from what? Every sin. Cleanses us. You see, in our hotel, we get some linens that get some pretty tough stains on them. Asphalt's hard to get out. Makeup's not easy to get out. Sometimes this black dirt that's around here that they try to wash their shoes with a washing rag instead of their face, it's hard to get out. But when Brenda sits down there with her bunch of chemicals and begins to treat that, it's amazing how much of it you'll never see again. And you see, it doesn't matter how bad we're stained with sin. It doesn't matter how bad our lives have been. When the blood of Jesus touches it, you never see it again. That's why we exist, because he exists. He is our reason. He is our source. So knowing this, when you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your fathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like the Lamb without blemish or spot. That is what we are celebrating. So, he says, this do in remembrance of me. And if the ushers will come forward, we will have communion this morning. And let's remember that he is, and that we exist in him as we participate in this. And the ushers come forward.